Hey, how's it going? I am back with I'm William Cobra. I'm back with another rebooking video, and this will be my second video. And today we're gonna do WrestleMania 7, which was in March of 1991. I decided to keep it in LA. I thought Los Angeles, that was California's very first WrestleMania, so decided to keep it there. Good venue. I know when they originally announced at WrestleMania 6, when they announced WrestleMania 7 was going to be in LA, they wanted to break the WrestleMania 3 attendance record. They were going to do 100,000 people, but for security reasons they didn't. They put it into a smaller venue because that's when the United States and Iraq, they were doing the Gulf War. It was the Gulf War of 91, so it was and Sergeant Slaughter just came back as heel, so it was very I don't know if you know this story, but Sergeant Slaughter had a lot of death threats against his family at this time because he was an Iraqi sympathizer, and he would get death threats at his family, at him. He had a lot of security at this time. I decided not to do the whole U.S. versus Iraq thing for this WrestleMania because of safety issues. Slaughter was a little old. Slaughter was a little older. He was he's not going to be a main player for me. So in this WrestleMania, Hulk Hogan will not be wrestling Sergeant Slaughter. So there's one little thing for you. I believe the tagline for this event was "Stars and Stripes Forever." Good tagline for what that WrestleMania was, but I decided to go with "Where the Power Lies." Because you remember how Hogan used to always point at his hand and say, "This is where the power lies, brother." So I went with "Where the Power Lies." What you need to know. Champions going into this WrestleMania, Legion of Doom. They're going to be the WWF Tag Champs. Mr. Perfect will be entering as Intercontinental Champion. And Ultimate Warrior will be entering as WWF Champion, still champion from his WrestleMania 6 win over Hogan. I had originally thought about putting Warrior Hogan too. I mean, I was at WrestleMania 6, so Hulk and Warrior from that event has a huge spot in my heart. So I thought maybe I would do that match. I know a lot of people wanted to see part 2 of that match. They wanted to see a rematch, but they never did book that rematch in the Federation. I decided going against it again for a second year in a row. I'm not a huge fan of back-to-back main events for WrestleMania being the same. They did that with Rock and Cena, and I felt WrestleMania 29 really suffered because of it too. So I left that out. One other thing you need to know, Jake the Snake Roberts, I have him turned heel over the summer of 1990 to start his heel run a little earlier, and he's going to be in a major match in this show. He's not going to be, I like how it went dark there, because he's not going to be in a blindfold match with Rick the Martel where they can't see each other. He's going to be very seeable. Okay, first match, I have the Rockers over Power and Glory. You'll see a lot of matches on this card, really. It's kind of preparing for the future, the young guys going over the established guys. So the Rockers, they opened up WrestleMania 7. I just kept it the same, except for they beat Power and Glory. Power and Glory was, if you don't know them, they were a team of, like, the one guy was Power, the other guy was a finesse guy, Paul Roma. So I just thought it'd be a little more competitive match. I had the Rockers go over there. And a lot of these matches don't really have storyline build up. It's just kind of the way the Federation was back then. If you weren't in a huge angle, they didn't really have big stories for you. It was kind of just go out and have your match, see what you can do. Second match. This match was also on the card. Earthquake over Greg the Hammer. Again, just giving Earthquake a big push here. He was a great monster heel. He squashes Greg the Hammer Valentine. You know, he's been a Federation mainstay for a lot of years. Nothing really too special there. Even the next match I kept the same, but probably just not in order. Mr. Perfect defeats the Big Bossman, keep the Intercontinental title. Correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that match ended in disqualification, but I just decided to have the Mountie jump in and interfere, shock him with the prattle stick, help kickstart the Bossman Mountie feud. And Mr. Perfect just beats him with a perfect plex and keeps his role going as IC champ. Next match, I have Bret the Hitman Hart over Rick the Model Martel. I know the Hart Foundation weren't split up here, but I decided I want to get Bret Hart prepared to be a big single star. The tag team really didn't have a lot of Bret and Jim. They didn't really have a lot of legs left as a tag team. Jim the Anvil was eventually he just went to commentary, and Bret was getting the singles push at SummerSlam 91 anyway. So why not give Bret Hart a little singles match at WrestleMania, give him some singles airtime. And Rick the Model Martel was always a great athlete, always in great shape, but he's also a guy that's been around a while. So I think Bret and Martel, they could have worked well together. Rick Martel had a lot of experience in the AWA, WWF, so I think it would have been a good singles victory for the Hitman. So Bret Hart goes over there. I'd say maybe 10-11 minutes of action. Nothing too long, but nothing too short either. Next match, another team I split up. I split up Demolition. I have Crush go over the Texas Tornado. Again, Demolition, another team, didn't have a lot of legs left as a team. I believe Axe had retired, so it was just Smash and Crush. So similar situation. They didn't have a lot of time left as a tag team, and Smash went on to become the Repo Man, one of the more laughable characters, but still funny. But and I would give Crush his old, well, not as old, but I think it was somewhere around 1996, Crush adopted his new finishing move. I don't know if you remember. Crush, I used to like Crush's old finishing move where he'd squeeze the head. That was his finishing move. You'd just squeeze the head until the guy would just pass out, just like that, But I like Crush's other finisher he had in 1996, the Hart Punch, where he would take the guy's head and hold it behind him, and then just a big straight punch right to the chest. Thinking that and imagining that, I'd be like, that's just as good a finisher as any. Just a big punch to the heart. And the Texas Tornado, he didn't, unfortunately, that whole Von Erich family was all, unfortunately, they were, a lot of tied in with drugs, and Kerry Von Erich, he committed suicide shortly after. I can't remember what year he committed suicide, but that whole Von Erich thing is just so sad, But so I'm preparing Crush for a big heel run too in the Federation. Next match for the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team titles. Very similar to the actual show, but I have the Nasty Boys go over the L.O.D. instead of the Hart Foundation. Hart Foundation are history now, and they're basically going to cheat to win the titles too, just like they did against Bret and Jim at the actual show. And the Nasty Boys will have a little run as tag team champs, which the L.O.D. will probably eventually get back anyways. So the Nasty Boys go over there. I thought they were great heels. I mean, people love to hate the Nasties. They were, I don't know, they had great charisma. Now for my semi-main event. This was the big one, the big match I changed and I actually put some thought into. Hulk Hogan versus Jake the Snake Roberts. I thought this would have been a great feud. I know they explored doing the feud somewhere around 1980, I want to say 86, when Roberts was still a heel, and he was actually getting cheered during some of their matches. And Jake talked about this too on his DVD, and when you have a gold, like Jake said, I'll use his exact quote, when you have a golden goose like Hulk Hogan, you don't want fans to be torn between who, you're going to cheer for Roberts, you're going to cheer for Hulk, even though Roberts was heel. So they ultimately scrapped the feud, but there is highlights of their match on YouTube. I think a couple or one match they had together, and they seem to have good chemistry, but so I'd put Hogan and Jake in the semi-main event as one half of the double main event. And for Hogan, I had him take some time off after SummerSlam 1990. He had that big main event match with Earthquake. I decided, let's give Hulk some time off. He'd been running hard for 6-7 years. I'm sure he was, could be busy lining up movies, future Mr. Nanny projects and stuff like that. And during this time away between SummerSlam and WrestleMania 7, Roberts goes on a heel turn. And during this heel turn, he's going to single out one of Hulk Hogan's best friends in the business. Can you take a guess or you probably know who is one of Hulk Hogan's best friends during this time period? No, it wasn't Macho Man. Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Him and Hulk are still close to this day. And I don't know I can't tell you when exactly happened, but I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Brutus the Barber Beefcake's major accident he had in his career. He was involved in a very serious jet ski accident where I can't remember exactly what happened, but I think a jet skier actually shot up and it hit Brutus on the boat, and it smashed his face completely. And Brutus was out of action for the better part of 2 years. And I don't know when this happened, but I'd like to play off it a little bit. I'm thinking, what if Jake, just DDT'd like Brutus 3 or 4 times on a floor or on the set of his barbershop where he used to do his promos. And I thought, man, if Jake could leave Brutus laying and get some really good heat for that, then I don't think people would be cheering Jake. You know what I mean? Brutus the Barber Beefcake was a loved character back then. I know he's not so loved by the internet now because they say, oh, he wasn't a good worker, oh, he wasn't a good technical guy. But Brutus was over. People loved the Barber. People loved the character. And I thought, if Jake could leave him laying, or if Barber did really get hurt at this time, and if Barber was good enough that Jake could, maybe DDT him a few times without hurting him more, and then Barber's out of action for a long time, which he didn't come back to the Federation until 93, so that would have been at least a year and a half, 2 years that, they could play off that. They could be like, maybe Jake really, okay, let's play off this real injury. Maybe Jake the Snake Roberts really ended my career. Maybe my, face looks like a hockey game, could be seriously hurt. And I don't know why, but to get Jake more heel heat, I had this vision in my head of fans, yelling at Jake the Snake Roberts around ringside, saying stuff like, I can't believe what you did to the Barber. And I don't know why, I just envisioned this fan with a mustache, a tall, skinny guy, and he's wearing a Hulk Rules t-shirt. And Jake was never one to yell during his promos. He always made his points by talking very calmly, he didn't yell. And I could just see him looking at this fan and be like, if you got something to say to me, you come in the ring and say it. And then this Hulk Hogan fan, you could tell he's a Hulkster fan, he's wearing the classic Hulk Rules shirt. And he comes in the ring and Jake just drops him with a DDT too. You never really saw wrestlers insulting fans, or assaulting fans, eh? So I thought, how cool would that be? What kind of cheap heel heat would that be for Jake to lay him out? And Jake just goes on this bitter rampage saying how, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Jake ever had any World Wrestling Federation Championship matches during the whole late 80s, early 90s. He was, the 80s, excuse me. He, not that he was ever needed because title changes were very few and far between compared to what they are now, but, you know, Jake could play off this bitter, you know, like, you know, why didn't you ever give me a shot, Hogan? You know what I mean? Like, I helped fight on your team in battles and Survivor Series and stuff like that too, you know. And Hogan agrees to come out and face him at WrestleMania. And I think they would have had a great feud and great match. And it's a feud and a match that wouldn't put anybody in danger like Sergeant Slaughter was. Like, so, and I'd have Hogan win, beat him with 3 leg drops, you know, like, Hogan always won with 1 leg drop, but this is a personal grudge for Hogan, and he's got to get revenge, and he doesn't just drop 1 leg, he drops 3 legs on him, and makes sure this is it. Hulk Hogan gets the last word over Jake the Snake Roberts. I don't know, I just thought, you know, they could have told a good story together. Next match, I kept the exact same, the start of the most famous streak in all of sports entertainment. The Undertaker starts his WrestleMania streak right here. And I originally thought about maybe putting a little more competitive guy in than Superfly Jimmy Snuka. He was pretty old at this point, you know, like in 91. But I thought, no, maybe I don't want to squash somebody else. If you're going to have Undertaker make his statement at his very first WrestleMania, why not squash a guy who's didn't really have a lot of legs left in him? I mean, I know Superfly went to ECW a couple years after this. He was the first ECW champion, but he didn't really have a lot left in the tank, so I think Superfly was the perfect legend for Undertaker to crush and start that famous streak, which we'll probably never see again. I'd be very surprised if we saw a streak like that again that goes that long. I mean, I'd love to kind of see it if someone could be that dedicated to the Federation, but it seems like people aren't as dedicated as they once were. And in the main event, I kept this match the exact same, but the only difference is for the WWF title. It's still a career versus career match. Well, this would be title versus career. The Ultimate Warrior versus, oh yeah, the Macho King, Randy Savage.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't change that if I tried. I mean, that was just, when I think of classic WrestleMania matches like that told a great story, to me that's one of the best ever. And I was at Hulk and Warrior, and I love that one too, but Warrior and Savage, that was just such an emotional ride, that match. And even just the little things like Ultimate Warrior walking to the ring for that match. He didn't run to the ring. First time you ever see him walk to the ring and preserve his energy, and, you know, like, this was, you know, this was it. This was career versus career. But in my rebooking in the Federation, this is title versus career. And Ultimate Warrior goes into WrestleMania WWF champion, and he leaves WWF champion. And I would have kept that the exact same. The Macho Liz reconciliation, you know, give Macho a little break. He goes to commentary. Man, there was nothing I could change about that, really. That was about as sweet as it got there. Classic stuff. So there it is. I'll just run down the card again really quick here. The Rockers over Power and Glory. Earthquake squashes Greg the Hammer. Mr. Perfect, with the assist of the Mountie, defeats the Big Bossman, keeps the Intercontinental Championship. Bret the Hitman Hart with his first big WrestleMania singles win over the Model, Rick Martel. Crush gets his big singles push here, and he's going to Heart punch the Texas Tornado to victory. Nasty Boys, they claim the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team titles off L.O.D. Hulk Hogan over Jake the Snake Roberts. Man, I still think about that. Like, what a story that would have been. But I just think that would have been such a big match. The Undertaker squashes Superfly Jimmy Snuka, and Ultimate Warrior and the Macho King Randy Savage close the show. Thank you for watching. Let me know any comments, criticisms. I'd love to hear back. I'd love to see your own videos, how you would have changed things. I plan on my next video will probably be WrestleMania 8. And I think I'm going to try and get in the habit of continuing where I leave off from previous WrestleManias instead of trying to book off the Federation's past history. So I'm going to play off this card going into WrestleMania 8. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me any comments you want. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.